When the English versions of Mega Zygarde EX and Meowth EX were revealed, we found out that Perfect Order would have a disappointing 88 cards in it before Secret Rares. Considering that just a few years ago sets regularly hovered around 200 cards, it seems like the Pokemon Company International is leaning towards smaller sets with Mega Evolution. That's kind of the nature of the Ultra Beast when we get 6 sets a year, I guess. What this means for cool competitive players like you and me is that pretty much the entirety of Japan's Nullifying Zero set will comprise our Perfect Order set. And thanks to translations from Pokebeach and Pokemon proxies, we know every single card that's in Japan's set releasing next week. We, of course, will then have to wait 2 months for Perfect Order to release on March 26th. There will be a few extras added to Perfect Order we don't know about yet, but odds are they're just random gym promos from Japan we've yet to receive that we'll never actually see play. I say that because the original press release said Perfect Order would have 9 regular EXs, but there's only 4 here in Japan's set. So get ready for Hop's Pinsirchin EX and Team Rocket's Kangaskhan EX to potentially take up hit slots in your booster packs. There's a lot to get to, so let's kick things off with the final of 4 Megas in Perfect Order, Clefable. Unfortunately, it's not nearly as good as you want it to be. The ability is nice though, preventing all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's abilities done to Clefable. So that stops Dusknoir, Munkidori, Frostlass, and a few others from affecting it. As for the attack, it's like creatures saw how insane they made Golden Go and decided to give us that, except much worse. For 2 Psychic, Shooting Moon does 120 base damage. That's increased by 40 for each energy you discard from hand up to 4. Essentially, Mega Clefable can deal anywhere from 120 to 280 damage for 2 energy. Not horrible, obviously, especially when you add Maximum Belt to reach 330 and use Wondrous Patch to power it up. But look at how much work you have to put in to do less than what Golden Go could do for 1 metal and 6 energy in hand. And Greninja also drew you cards while only giving up 2 prizes, not 3. Since Golden Go is rotating on Perfect Order launch day, I think the closest post-rotation comparable is Raging Bolt. Sure, Raging Bolt loses Sawdust Vitality, but it still has Crispin and Glass Trumpet and Ogerpon and Energy Switch and Iono's Belly Bolt EX and no damage cap. And where Clefable is a stage 1 that requires 6 total energy to deal 280 damage, Raging Bolt is a basic that only needs 4 total energy to deal 280 damage. Simply because of the fact I'd much rather play Raging Bolt over Clefable, I have to give the 4th and final Mega in Perfect Order a disappointing 2.5 toes out of 5. I'd go lower, but it does maybe help keep Mega Lucario in check. Though I think if I'm really worried about Lucario and Dragapult post-rotation, simply running Lily's Clefairy on its own seems better. It one-shots both of them fairly easily, requires far less moving parts, gives up 1 prize if Lily's Pearl is attached, and can slot into any deck running Wondrous Patch or Crispin. Now, I did skip over an important piece of the Clefable puzzle, and that's Aromatisse. Clefable needs energy in hand, yet superior energy retrieval is rotating. Thankfully, we're getting Aromatisse, who grabs 2 Psychic energy from deck and puts them directly into your hand. Do it twice with 2 Aromatisse, Clefable can deal 280 damage. Energy Recycler recovers the lost energy, meaning looping Shooting Moons isn't difficult. But again, there's better attackers similar to Mega Clefable that can do the same thing for less work. Which makes you wonder why they didn't let Clefable discard up to 5 energy, as that would be a clean KO on Dragapult EX without needing Lily's Clefairy. Normally I would jump right into the regular EXs, but I need to take a moment to point out what will potentially be the second best card in all of Perfect Order. The 3rd of 3 special energy in the set, Telepath Psychic Energy lets you put any 2 basic Psychic Pokemon from deck onto your bench when it's attached from hand to a Psychic Pokemon. If the effect isn't registering yet, this 1 energy is a double Nest Ball specifically for Psychic types. Or for you boomers out there, it's a double Capture Energy for Psychic types. With Nest Ball rotating, this fixes all the setting up issues Psychic decks might have. Not only does it vastly improve the setup for Slowking and Alakazam post-rotation who already have access to Buddy Buddy Poffin, but it can find something like Latias EX as well. While regular Gardevoir EX is rotating the day Telepath Energy is out, Mega Gardevoir EX will remain. Meaning you can Hilda for the energy in an evolution and guarantee 2 Ralts on the bench even if you've been Badooed. And I don't even want to mention that it can find 2 Duskull in a deck featuring Dusknoir, or 2 Frillish in a Jellicent item and Tool Lock deck, or 2 Munkidori. Thankfully, we don't seem to have a truly busted Psychic deck ready to go post-rotation, but if we get one in the next 3 years, Telepath Energy will make it insane. In addition to those 4 Mega EXs, we're also getting 9 regular EXs in Perfect Order, and Salazzle is definitely one of them. It's kind of crazy how bad this card is. Like, even if it was a single prizer, it wouldn't see play. For a single fire, Nasty Plot gets 2 cards from deck. Cool, I guess. Then for 2 fire, Fatal Nail is a hit and run attack that does 100 damage while also poisoning and burning. This is worse than both Excelgor and Low Kicks. Low Kicks does 150 damage for a single ignition energy attachment. Excelgor confuses in addition to poisoning, which is a lot better than burn, potentially forcing them to whiff attacks. To make matters worse, Mimikyu and Klefki rotate the day Salazzle EX is out, hurting this archetype greatly. Sure, Crustle and Cornerstone Masked Ogerpon in the new Turtonator will exist, but again, Low Kicks and Excelgor are better. Is it possible to give a card 0 toes out of 5? As the resident cheek spreader on Pokemon TCG Live, I'm not as excited about Yveltal EX as you might think. For 2 Darkness and a Colorless, it knocks out each of your opponent's Pokemon with 50 or less hit points. Ignoring the attack cost for a second, Yveltal's potential perfect partner in Zarina EX is rotating, so that's defenestrated. And no, I don't think Palisand EX is a suitable replacement for the Pokemon that could crush my head like a watermelon between its thick thighs. It pretty much leaves you with Frostlass Munkidori. Except there's no real synergy here aside from the fact that the deck runs Darkness Energy to monkey around with. Except how are you supposed to reliably get people down to low HP? N's Vanilla Arts requires an Ignition Energy or a counter gain. Except that's a stage 2, jamming up the deck further. Plus, de-evolution rotating hurts Frostlass Munkidori Badoo quite a bit because how the hell are you supposed to deal with Dragapult now? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that Yveltal can do funny things against really weak decks like Testicle Festival and maybe even Alakazam. But Frostlass Munkidori doesn't need help against those. So while Yveltal is funny, it just seems like too much work right now. If there is some crazy combo I'm missing though, please let me know in the comments. Before we get to the rest of the Pokemon, let's take a quick look at the new trainers. When Barbaracle was announced, we thought it would be the perfect partner for Garchomp and Greninja, able to get them powered up without too much thought. While that's still probably the case, Rosa's Encouragement is a very interesting card. If you're behind on prizes, Rosa allows you to attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to one of your Stage 2 Pokemon. For Mono-type Stage 2s, it's an improvement over Crispin, though that whole letting your opponent beat you off first might be tricky. For Multi-type energy Stage 2s like Dragapult and Hydreigon, I think Crispin is better, because Rosa's useless if you're winning. While I could see a copy of Rosa sneaking into those multi-type Stage 2 lists, don't forget Neo Upper Energy still exists. For now, I'm hesitant on Rosa's Encouragement. The effect is good, but until Neo Upper and Crispin rotate in March 2027, it seems like it will only help a small section of the Stage 2 meta. Potentially annoying like a fly, but much worse than Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer, Energy Swatter forces your opponent to take their socks off and reveal their feet. If there's an energy card in there, you can put it on the bottom of their deck. So it doesn't discard the energy, it just plays peekaboo. With Earth and Vessel succumbing to rotation, yeah, it might be okay, but Energy Search is getting reprinted, plus we have Hilda and Crispin to mitigate any potential shenanigans. And let's not forget that they just might not have energy in hand, making the Swatter useless. I guess the counter argument is that Toadstool is rotating, so having energy in deck is maybe better than the discard pile where it can be Night Stretchered. But no, Energy Swatter still seems bad. Just like Lumiose Galette, which is an indirect reprint of Big Malasada from the Sun and Moon days. Proving that power creep doesn't exist in the Pokemon trading card game, 9 years later you still only heal 20 and remove a special condition. Do I really need to explain why this won't see play? Sticking with the healing theme, Jacynth heals 150 damage from one of your Psychic Pokemon. Even if it was able to heal any type, I don't think it sees play. With this Psychic restriction, you're pretty much just healing Mega Gardevoir. Except Mega Gardevoir has access to Wally's Compassion, which fully heals it at the cost of putting all energy back into your hand. Mega Gardy attacks for a single energy, so what exactly is the point of Jacynth? Maybe when the Winds and Waves generation starts in 2027 it'll have some use. During the Mega Evolution era it seems kinda useless. For the single prize Pokemon, I'll be going in Pokédex order because it's easier than bouncing around like that woman I paid to jump on a trampoline while dressed up as a Lopunny. We start with Ariados, who is a super unique card with a single energy attack cost that does 50 damage, poisons, and prevents retreat. That's totally different from the Gliscor we just got in Phantasmal Flames, who has a single energy attack cost that does 50 damage, poisons, and prevents retreat. While it's true I made it to Master League with Gliscor Frostlass, that's not an actual accomplishment. I'm not sure I see the vision with this Shaman. For a Grass energy, you can accelerate any energy from deck to one of your bench Grass Pokemon. I'm assuming they want us to attach a Grow Grass energy to somebody, but as I pointed out before, and will do again, Grow Grass has no synergy with Teal Masked Ogerpon, Mega Venusaur, or Meganium's abilities. If you're playing a basic Grass attacker to help with setup who can one-shot Badoo, it's Celebi, not Shaman. Serperior's interesting. You can basically ignore Royal Command, which tops out at 120 damage unless you have Area 0 and Ogerpon in play. What you care about is Solar Winder. If Rosa's Encouragement's in your discard pile, Serperior does 250 damage for 3 Grass. Since Reversal Energy's rotating, Rosa's your best bet for reliably powering up Serperior. It also means you can forego Meganium to help fulfill the attack cost. The problem is that you essentially have to use Rosa's every single turn to keep your Serperior powered up. Except you have to keep getting this Stage 2 Grass type into play every turn to keep attacking. Yet you'll be unable to play something like Lilies or Dawn to recover those Serperior. While I appreciate the effort they put into the Grass Snape, it's going to be even less playable than Superior EX. If you want to use a grass deck, you're much better off with, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Mega Venusaur EX or Decidueye EX. If you're the kind of person who beats people off in a Costco parking lot for new Pokemon cards, this next combo is going to have your feet soaking wet. Get Talonflame into play, use its ability, and if you flip heads, a random card is discarded from your opponent's hand. In my eyes, that's better than Flygon, who I wasted several hours playing recently. But it gets better. There's also a Turtonator coming out in perfect order with the same ability as Clefable EX. If Turtonator's in the active and gets damaged by an attack, you discard an energy from the attacking Pokemon. No coin flip necessary. So you put Turtonator up front, and they have to sacrifice an energy to knock it out. All the while, Talonflame's on your bench, shrinking their hand. Once they're out of resources, drop the Yveltal Aber combo on them so you don't deck out. Or just plop Neutralization Zone onto the table, making them hate life. We're losing Wugtrio to rotation, but with a little luck, this could be a new Sword and Mill deck that you instantly concede against on live if you don't have enough recovery in your deck. Remember when I said the Dewgong Spidops pairing needed a good basic water type to be successful? Well, Volcanion isn't that. For 2 water and a colorless, you flip a coin for each water energy attached to Volcanion. For each heads, it deals 90 damage. Experience share is rotating and Volcanion has a 3 retreat cost, meaning Heavy Baton is useless. While this would have been useful now in a Baxcalibur deck, when Volcanion comes out this March, you won't be able to get enough energy on it for Powerful Steam to reliably deal enough damage. I'd wager you'll get 3 on average with the Dewgong Spidops combo when you realistically want 7 to combat PTCGL's RNG. So yeah, creatures needs to try again if they want Dewgong Spidops to be a thing. The most interesting thing about the new Luxray line is the Luxio. You can evolve it right away if your opponent's active is an EX. That may sound weird considering it's a stage 1 and the new Shinx doesn't have the same ability. But in Expanded there's a Shinx who does. For standard players though, the whole thing is underwhelming. Luxray has the exact same attack as Aegis/EX. For each prize card you've taken, it does 70 damage. If you've taken 4, that's 280, and at 5, that's 350. If a single prize lightning deck with electric pops up at some point, it's a great closer. Otherwise, there isn't really a world where you choose Luxray over Zekrom EX to finish a game. Though I guess the new Luxio kinda makes Luxray EX slightly more playable. The big cat can deal 120 damage and discard any card from your opponent's hand, making it a weaker Mega Absol. And the second attack does do 250 at the cost of discarding all energy. So there's a bit of potential, it's just kinda meh overall. Then we have Pikachu Clone number 4 with a slightly interesting attack. For each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon, you can accelerate a basic lightning from your discard pile to your lightning Pokemon however you want. While electric will still exist for acceleration, we are losing electric generator to rotation. Unfortunately, we've had similar attacks in the past that never saw use. Sure, Dedenne seems like the best, but recent history says it won't see play. Though it could be a nice way to get back into a game against something like Mega Lucario or any dark deck running Toxtricity or anything with Monkey Dory that typically has 4, 5, or 6 energy in play at a time. The issue is that you're using a turn to power everybody up, practically giving them a free prize in the process. And against Dragapult, you might be giving them multiple free prizes. So again, the attack is good, I just don't know if anyone's actually going to use it. Mawile and Esper are bulked, though I imagine that Esper card will be in high demand among the furry community with its art. Assuming you're not Shane Dawson and didn't pause the video infinitely on that Esper card, let's move on to Probopass. For 3 fighting and a colorless, it does 260 damage, though you have to get rid of 3 energy in the process. Clearly they want us to create some sort of crappy deck featuring Probopass, Barbaracle, Terragon, Lunatone, Solrock, and I guess Ignition Energy. Except you'd need to have 3 Barbaracle in play at all times with a backup Nosepass on the bench plus Lunatone and Solrock for card draw since Terragon will be your supporter for turn. If you're wondering about Probopass and Mega Lucario, you'd have to take out Harry Mama to make room, which you absolutely are not going to do. Maybe if it was a 3 energy attack cost and discard a 2, Probopass might see play. Instead, they chose to make it borderline unplayable. Utilizing pretty much the exact same strategy with Barbaracle and Terragon, we have Hippowdon. This guy does 80 damage and mills 3 if you play Terragon during your turn. So this is basically Great Tusk with damage on a stage 1. Except where Great Tusk had 2 different supporters and access to Palpad, Hippowdon just has Terragon and no Palpad. So in that sense, Hippowdon is still worse than Great Tusk post-rotation because Great Tusk is a mill of 4 and only requires 2 energy, not 3. Sure, there's no damage, but what I'm trying to say is that Fighting Mill is going to be non-existent starting in March. Featuring a move that sounds like something out of the Kama Sutra, Screw Knuckle Landorus is bulk. Same with Hawlucha. Yeah, potential 90 damage for 1 fighting on a free retreater isn't terrible, but I'm choosing Solrock over Hawlucha every day of the week. So let's talk about Gengar instead. You've been able to jack your opponent's mind several times over the years, most recently with Zoroark from White Flare. Like Zoroark, you're not doing very much damage, capped off at 160 without Area 0. The only spice with Gengar is that if it's knocked out by damage, you put Gengar and any Pokemon underneath it back into your hand rather than the discard pile. If the card was good, it might be useful, but in this day and age, it isn't. Just about the only nice thing I can say about this Gengar line is that the new Ghastly can maybe knock out a Badoo. Except even then, it's a freaking coin flip. At the very least, though, it's an upgrade over the current one. Back in the Sun and Moon days, we had a Drapion that did 100 damage while poisoning and paralyzing that no one ever used. 8 years later, they're doing it again, except now it's a Dart type and it only takes 3 energy at the cost of punching itself in the balls for 70. I know Drapion's a stage 1 and Palmot's a stage 2, I just think Palmot's the better paralyzer like Finger 11. It takes 2 energy, not 3, and has access to Electric for energy acceleration. Or I guess with Perfect Order, Rosa's Encouragement making it more possible in a Frostlass Paralysis deck. The benefit of Drapion is that it might be easier to run Monkey Dory since Toxtricity can accelerate Darkness energy. But then your bench is way too jammed. And if you have to Toxtricity twice to a Drapion before Monkey Dorying, that leaves it with 30 hit points. So if they have a Monkey, your Scorpion is easily knocked out. I'm not a fan of the Paralysis lock options in Standard, and Drapion does nothing to change that. I'm guessing that along with me, you're just now learning Chien-Pao is part Dark type. That's the only cool thing about it because for 3 energy it does just 162 EXs. I think if you're playing a basic Dart type that attacks for 3 energy in a Toxtricity deck, you're choosing Seviper over Chien-Pao. Yeah, the Snake needs a Mega in play, but 240 is a higher number than 160. As for Klefki, we've had attacks like this in the past, but since evolving and retreating and switching break the lock, they don't get used. Klefki does KO Badoo for 1 energy early though, and could be slightly annoying late in a control deck. This is one of those situations where the stage 1 is better than the stage 2. Though ironically, this isn't the first time where a Doublade has been better than the associated Aegislash. This time around, Perfect Order Doublade does 60 damage times the number of Hone Edge, Doublade, or Aegislash you reveal from your hand, all for 2 colorless. That reveal part is important because Revelio is much better than having to discard the cards or shuffle them back into your deck. This makes it more like Milk Can and Miltank rather than Rapid Strike Malamar, which was a top deck back in the day. Unfortunately, where Rapid Strike Malamar only needed a single Psychic Energy, Doublade needs 2 colorless. With Reversal Energy rotating the same day Doublade comes out, this means it'll only have access to Ignition Energy. So fulfilling the 2 energy attack cost won't be easy, effectively turning this into a worse Team Rocket Porygon Z. But if you can make it work, there are some positives. For starters, revealing 4 Aegislash is 240 damage right there. Add a Brave Bangle, it's 270. Throw in a single Doublade, you're one-shotting most 2 and 3 prizers in the game. I imagine Max Rod will be the ace spec of choice so you can easily recover any knocked out dudes. What sucks is that we're also losing experience share to rotation. Counter gain remains, except you have to be sucking a butt for it to activate. For now, Doublade is strictly relegated to potential road deck status. But if we get something like Twin Energy or a Metal Saucer reprint, don't be surprised if this ends up making a comeback like Kim Kardashian. Not too long ago, we had a Bisharp that did 30 damage plus 30 more for each damage counter on each of your bench Pawniard. With Perfect Order, we're getting Eradicate who does 40 damage for each damage counter on your bench Rattata. The difference here is that Pawniard had 70 hit points while Rattata has just 40. So in order to deal 320 damage in one shot of Dragapult, you need to have 8 damage counters on your benched Rats, nearly leaving all 3 with 10 hit points left. Then on the next turn, you lose the game. What they want us to do is pair Eradicate with the new Diggersby. Earthquake does 140 damage for 1 energy and hits everyone on your bench for 30. If Dragapult and Monkey Dory didn't exist, this could be a fun road deck. They do, so it's not. Lively Stadium helps a bit, but you'd much rather have Battle Cage for bench protection. I will say though, if you only face decks like Cerulege and Mega Venusaur, this is great. Against like the top 5 decks that'll exist post-rotation, well, at least you'll lose quickly. Finally, we have Snorlax and Furfrou. Snorlax is a worse Mega Audino who can flip tails on the first coin and do nothing. The only way it's playable is if you can guarantee at least 3 heads in a row. Yet even then, it attaches to itself, so Heavy Baton is a must. Furfrou, meanwhile, has a hand discard attack. If they have more than 5 cards in hand, random cards are discarded until they have 5. With Golden Doe rotating, this won't be nearly as impactful. It's mostly just helpful against Alakazam. But even then, Hand Trimmer and Xerosic are probably better. You can check out the playlist linked in the description for more in-depth thoughts about the rest of the Perfect Order set list. For now, let me do a quick refresher on the other cards now that we know 90% of the set. Starting with Mega Zygarde, nothing's changed. It's still a fun-looking card if you like Riss. Power it up with Barbaracle, then launch Nullifying Zero, hoping to deal 150 damage 2 or 3 times in a game to win. Otherwise, Core Memory lets you swing for 350 for 4 energy on somebody with access to Premium Power Pro. Just like Mega Zygarde, I already talked about Meowth when it was first announced. However, there is something interesting to note here. The last sentence of its ability, Last Ditch Catch, specifies that you can't use more than one ability that has Last Ditch in its name each turn. It could be a simple case of future proofing, or there's going to be more Last Ditch abilities in the future. Whatever the case, Meowth is going to be heavily played over the next 3 years. I mean, every copycat in the past, like Tapu Lele GX and Lumineon V, has been a staple, and Meowth is no different. Just be aware that both Meowth and Fezandipity are weak to fighting, and Gardevoir's leaving standard, opening the door for Lucario. Plus, Team Rocket's Watchtower shuts off Meowth along with Noctowl, the Dunsparce, and Bloodwind Ursaluna EX. So it won't necessarily be a fancy feast for Meowth in our new format, but it's still a tier 1 card. Decky Dewey EX with Vivillon and Judge still appears to be annoying. For a single grass, you're dealing 240 damage and discarding energy while limiting them to 4 cards in hand. Mega's Starmie and Starmie seem like massive disappointments. Sure, Starmie can deal 210 for an ignition and Starmie can snipe 220, they just both take too much work. Tyrantrum might be its own deck if we can solve the energy issue, giving itself 330 hit points and having access to Tyrant's Get Angry to potentially deal huge damage. Aurorus, however, might only see play with Mega Kangaskhan, and even then it's a stretch. The other 2 special energy in perfect order are nowhere near as good as Telepath Energy. Rock Fighting is just a missed energy for fighting types, while Growgrass Energy has no synergy with Mega Venusaur, Ogerpon, or Meganium since it's not a basic energy. Lastly, Pterodon is Tulip for fighting types, which will help keep the Barbaracle engine running. And Naveen is just Sightseer, so it's likely not going to see much play. If I had to pick my early top 10 best cards coming in perfect order on March 26th in Pokemon TCG Live, this is what they'd be. Though now that I'm seeing them all at once, I would expect perfect order to realistically have a top 5 and the rest be filler. That's just what happens when they decide to give us a set with only 88 cards in it. And it's not like things are going to get better. If the leaks for our May set are real, we'll be going down to 86 cards in that one. So get ready for some dry months to start 2026 while we all wallow in misery as Dragapult dominates the format and we have to play Judge as our hand disruptor.